You don't understand the game. You still keep failing exams. You change a few things, but you still fall victim to the same things you always fall for. And you flunk the exam again. How long more must this hell continue for? Hi, I'm Aku, and I'm from the 8th best university in the world. To destroy exams, you first need to understand the game and how to play it. First, you need to realize that exams are video games. Think of a video game that you always play. It could be Valorant, Call of Duty, or some whatever games there are. The ones that make you build things from scratch and lets you level up as you play it more. The reason why I say exams are video games is because video games have certain logic that you need to follow so that you can increase to the next level. I'm sure we all know this intuitively that exams follow a similar structure as well. You should approach an exam like how you approach a video game. There are levels in the exam. The exam has different questions that have different difficulty levels, and you have your own skill level in the subject of the exam. And your skill level will, the higher your skill level, the higher the difficulty of questions you can solve in the exam. You should treat the exam as a video game with different levels. Don't treat it as this one big daunting thing that you have to sit for and hopefully pass. You should treat the exam as a combination of different sectors of questions. Not only are exams video games, but you should understand how they are created. Imagine the examiner that created the exam. How would he structure an exam? Would he simply just copy questions from the last 10 years of exams and put it into a paper? Maybe if he was lazy, he would do that. But the real rationale on how examiners think is that they think in the perspective of the students. They understand that some students are stronger and some students are weaker. They cannot really flunk everyone. If not, the exam would be too hard and people would complain about the exam. So they create questions that are very diverse in difficulty level. For example, they will make extremely easy questions in the exam, and they will make extremely difficult questions in the exam as well. Maybe not extremely difficult, but they will definitely make questions that require more time to think. And this makes exams, this makes the marks in exams not equal. Each mark in the exam might require a different amount of effort to think and acquire. The marks from the easy questions should be free, and the marks from the difficult questions are harder to get. This is how they differentiate students of different skill levels and how they differentiate the smarter students from the not so smart students or students who just need to do better. It's interesting, isn't it? Every exam is made like this. And you need to realize this as a student because this will allow you to understand what you're up against. And your exam strategy should tackle this very structure of an exam. That is the reason why an exam strategy will work for every single subject, or at least most STEM subjects. In a sense, like it is physics, chemistry, maths, biology, and subjects like that. An exam strategy should work on all four of these subjects. And if you take more of like a humanitarian subject like arts or geography, the exam strategy should still be somewhat the same, but it's just tweaked a bit. It's like a different version of a video game. One is FPS, first person shooter, and one is like the games where you have to build things from scratch. And those games might have different strategies in order to excel in that game. But in the context of an exam, it is actually easier than a video game because video games are very, very different from each other. Whereas exams, as long as they're all like science, technology, engineering, or mathematics related, the exam strategy is the same. So, this is what you are up against: an examiner who structures an exam in the same exact way for the same exact purpose of being able to differentiate students. And this is universal. And your exam strategy and the way you tackle this whole problem of exams should be such that it will tackle the very structure of an exam. So you just destroy every exam you take because you understand how an exam works. It works in the same way as a video game. And I want you to realize that everyone plays this video game the same way. They don't even realize that they are up against something that is made in such a specific way, and they just treat an exam as this daunting problem that they are up against. Everyone studies by highlighting random sentences on their textbook, or at least try to understand them, and they don't really understand it, but they don't really know how to increase their understanding, and they just stare at the book and they hope everything goes in. They go to the exam, they don't even realize they're up against such a unique structure that is the same for every single exam we will ever take. Because an exam's purpose is to differentiate students. They don't realize this. They treat an exam as this daunting thing, like every student does. They try to study, they try to practice, they all get the same grade. Maybe they barely pass, or they barely get a B. And if they're lucky, they get an A sometimes. The moment you are good at taking exams and you understand how you study for an exam and how to get a correct exam strategy, you will always be good at the game. You can realize that if you are good at a certain video game, for example, GTA 5, let's say like I've kind of forgot how the game works. Like you're just very good at like robbing banks and all that. You can never be bad at a video game once you get extremely good at it. And the same applies for exams. What you need to do is to learn how to tackle exams based on this video game structure that every exam is based upon. Once you realize this structure, you will be good at every single exam you take because you know how exams work. They work in the same way as a video game. And this is also why everyone fails terribly most of the time. It's because they don't realize that exams are made in this structure. Or they kind of know it, but they don't really know what to do about it. So, how can you play an exam differently? Differently from everyone else? Since we have broken down in the earlier part of this video that exams are video games, what is the correct way to play? The way you play this exam is called an exam strategy, or at least I call it an exam strategy. You can't just go in with the knowledge that you have in the subject and destroy the exam. Of course, you can do that if the questions are quite easy and they just test the knowledge in your brain. But most exams require you to think on top of what you already know in the middle of the exam. That's how they differentiate. That's how they differentiate students. So how do you play differently? You need a correct exam strategy. There's a lot of exam strategies that you can have. You can just go in, do every question, and then when it comes to a difficult question, you get stunned for like 5-10 minutes, and you just skip and do every single question. Most people do that, but the precious time wasted of 5 to 10 minutes can actually give you a lot more marks that you actually deserve. Because those 5 to 10 minutes could be spent on doing the easy questions and getting the easy marks that an exam always has. And if you do not have a correct exam strategy, you will waste these marks and you can end up failing an exam, especially if they put the difficult questions at the start of the paper. So I'm not gonna waste your time. What exam strategy do I use in my own exams? Well, I have an outline of an exam strategy that I have in my online course in the description below, where I just talk about symbols that I use in annotating every single question in the exam. And this would let me categorize each question based on difficulty level. It's a very unique system, and if you're curious, you can always check it out. But there are other exam strategies you can use. But the reason why they won't be as effective is because they are not specific in they're not very specific, like a specific step by step basis. A lot of teachers they just say, oh, just do your best in the exam. Do your best. Yeah, that doesn't work. Because you need a strategy. But how much more would a correct exam strategy as the one that I use? How much more would that increase your results? Well, earlier I said that every exam is structured as a video game. So if you use the correct strategy to play, or you can think of it as the meta way you play in an exam, which basically means like the most effective way you can destroy an exam. The reason why it works so well is because it takes advantage of the way an exam is structured, which should be the way you solve every other problem in life. You shouldn't just like jump in blindly. You should like understand what you're up against first and like tackle it. Imagine imagine the CIA. They want to track down a certain individual, like who has done something like bad to the country and they're trying to flee, right? Imagine if they just took every single police car or every single special forces like car that they have to just patrol around the entire country. It would be incredibly inefficient. You might think that maybe a few weeks or months they may find the person, but in that time, like the criminal could have flown to another country, and this would cause the CIA to find it extremely difficult to catch this person. However, if they took a step back and they used their own strategies, I'm sure the CIA has many strategies that they use to hunt down these criminals. They have their own strategy. They know that they're playing something that's sort of a video game. They want to crack down this criminal, and the criminal has various methods of thinking on how they can get away. But it's all sort of the same exact way. They would probably try to make a fake passport, flee the country, or like run into like an abandoned building and just stay there. It's all sort of like a video game. And the CIA can think in the perspective of the criminal. And usually they will hunt them down in a few days or at maximum 1 week. That is how much better you can get. That same level of effectiveness and efficiency can be achieved by you in an exam if you use the correct exam strategy. In other words, it will probably at least 1.5x the current results that you have. Sometimes, if the exam has difficult questions, an exam strategy could maybe help you maximize everything in the exam, but it could just be like a 1.1x, like what you would have gotten without the exam strategy. So, at the end of the day, how you study is still very important. You can imagine like putting a towel in a bucket and the towel is absorbing all the water. That is you, that symbolizes you studying and absorbing information. An exam strategy is like you taking the towel and like going to the exam and like squeezing the towel as much as you can. That is an exam strategy. And with the exam strategy that I have, you're able to rinse the towel of all its water and like crush it in the most efficient way possible because of how an exam is crafted. And I want that for you because I want your exam strategy to help you so much that even if you didn't really have enough time to prepare adequately for an exam, you can still get all the easy marks and pass an exam. But of course, if you want your A's and if you want to get crazy results, you have to study before the exam. But an exam strategy will make sure that your studying doesn't go in vain. And this is the reason why I feel that a lot of students around the world, yeah, they may have good intentions of like, oh yes, I want to study a lot and get good grades, but they don't realize that the exam is a video game and that there is an exact strategy that you have to adopt if you want to be extremely effective every single time you do an exam. There's always a meta way to play a video game. And in the context of an exam, it doesn't really change because every exam's purpose is to just differentiate students into the students who are extremely smart and the students who pass, and then the students who should study more. That purpose of an exam will never change. And that is the reason why an exam strategy that you adopt, once you get good at it, is like having hacks in a video game. It really is like that because of the way exams are crafted. You may have heard before of the concept of peaking, which is that students study, they get A's, and then like in the later half of the year, they start failing and they're like, oh no, why am I failing now? I used to get A's, what happened? Is that exactly the thing that I just said like a few minutes ago, where they had the intention of studying, the good intention of studying to increase their grades. And they just failed because they didn't realize that an exam is not really just testing you on what you know, but an exam tests you on what you know on top of some critical thinking in the moment of the exam because they want to differentiate those students who can really articulate like the knowledge on the spot. And most students don't realize this. They don't even realize that they're playing a video game and they fail. And if you have a correct exam strategy, like the one that I use, this would always prevent you from peaking. Because if an exam really has like extremely difficult questions and you have used the correct study methods to effectively increase your skill level, and then you're able to use an exam strategy that will help you rinse all of your knowledge and allows you to critically think on top of all the knowledge, you can never fail an exam ever again. In my own second year of junior college, which is like, I don't know what that is in global terms. Like, like A levels, like GCE A levels, like the year that you take the exam. Yeah, when I was in that position, in the middle of the year, and especially after we learned all the content, I never got below a B for my STEM subjects, which means like chemistry, maths, and physics. I will always get at least a B, no matter how difficult the exam was. And getting an A just depends on how more effectively you grasp all the knowledge. An exam strategy just helps you stop peaking and just makes you not get all this annoying like stoppages on the way. You will always make progress because you are taking advantage of the structure of an exam, so you can never fail again. And I've used this own method, and I was able to never get below a B for the later half of the year, which is like the part of the year that is the most difficult because like the knowledge just gets harder like after you've learned the basics. And it wasn't because I was smart. Maybe I am, but it was because of the exam strategy that I used. And if you're curious on what this exam strategy is, you can check out like the link in the description where I have it in as one of the modules in my course. Of course, you can research on your own exam strategy, but the exam strategy that I used was something that I researched about myself and applied in an actual exam. And I feel that it is one of the best strategies to ever use because I wasn't really that smart, but I just could not get below a B for like any exam that I took. And I think that's well worth it for you. So if you're curious, you can check it out. If not, that's completely fine. But at the end of the day, you should realize that exams are video games. And you should play them like video games. Cheers.